People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Just a few minutes.
Oh, good, you're up.
What are you doing?
Let's make sure we're on the same page here. You're gonna make my son's penis erect and hard. You're going to put it inside your vagina until he ejaculates fully. This will all be done bareback.
Oh, Jesus.
No rubbers, Missy. He deserves the full, pleasurable experience.
No. I'm not doing that. Well, wait.
What are you doing?
Wait, no!
It breaks my heart. There's so much sex in the world and he gets not a crumb of it. Birds fuck, dog fuck, bugs fuck, fleas fuck, and nobody fucks him. You're gonna fuck him, and you're gonna fuck him good.
Hey folks, welcome to a very special episode of the Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I am talking with the one and only Todd Rohal. I have been a fan and a friend of Todd's for quite a few years, and I'm very excited to talk to him about his latest film, My Son. It is going around the country. Follow Todd over on Instagram to find out where it is going to be playing near you. Talked to Todd about quite a few films in his career, kind of left the Johnny Knoxville film alone, but otherwise talked to him about quite a bit. Had a great time catching up with him and also discussing My Son. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Todd, I've never asked you this before, but how did you even decide to become a filmmaker?
They make you make decisions when you're in Ohio. They're like, okay, everyone, you have to tell us what you're going to be. No, it was in kindergarten. I remember telling my teacher that I was going to make movies. And honestly, I don't even know what I'd seen at that point. Kindergarten's very early. I don't even know if I had memories before that, but I just remember saying that I was going to do that. It's odd. I remember watching like The Never-Ending Story over and over and over on a VHS tape that we rented from the library, very into it and really picking apart shots from that and trying to figure out how they did it, even as a little kid. And then finding out, other kids were too scared to watch it because I was pretty young when I was doing it. And I was like, why are you scared of this? It's just a movie, it's like, I think I had a clear sense of the making of things and then the result of things fairly early on, and really loved that idea of doing it, but never had any connection to it. Just was a total impossibility, I think, as a little kid, because I was growing up in Columbus, Ohio, and it was like, there was nothing remotely connected to the film world there. So everyone was like, I don't know how you would do this. So maybe come up with another idea if you can. Maybe a different field of work or something to pursue. So yeah, most of my life was just spent trying to figure out early life was spent trying to figure out what else I could do instead of making movies.
The first movie of yours I saw was Knuckleface Jones back in 99. What were those earlier films like?
So I went to film school. I tried to go to NYU. That's the dream, because reading about everybody who was coming out of film school at that time. I graduated high school in 94. So it was like the height of when the film school brats of the generations prior were all coming from NYU, USC, UCLA. Those are the three schools. And so I applied to those and did not have the grades to get in, nor the money. I remember NYU sending which now it would seem very affordable, but it's $25,000 a year, and they offered me $1,000 in scholarship, and it was like, yeah, not an impossibility. And now I guess it's probably, obviously, yeah, even more expensive. So all colleges are unaffordable. But I ended up going to Ohio University in Ohio, where I was at, because it was a state school. And they had a film program that was in the arts department, which is where I knew I wanted to go. I wanted a film program in the art department. Either back then it was like either in the communications department or telecommunications is what it was called. That's a very 1950s term, which I doubt is still around in schools. But I knew I didn't want to go into the communications end of film. I was interested in the art department. So they did have that. And it was like, that program dated back to the 60s. Ed Lockman went there, and there was a big history connected to even Ann Arbor, between Ohio University and Ann Arbor, of like art, experimental film. And so a lot of the experimental filmmakers would make that circuit through Ohio University. And so there was a pretty deep history there between Stan Brakhage and the Kuchars. And I don't think Jonas Mekas came through there, but even Stan Vanderbeek, I think, came through the school, and Bruce Bailey and people like that were like within a few years of that, like my time there had been at the program and speaking. I ended up loving it, and then making these. Everyone had a bit of an experimental sense. The teachers were all fighting with each other, so it was like we had a bunch of CP16 cameras, one Arri SR2. Everything was edited on Steenbeck's Avid. They just bought a new Avid, which no one wanted to touch because we didn't like technology then. We were cool. But like all of that was just starting to bridge in, and like the students there, and I think the history of that, watching experimental films in our experimental film class taught by this woman, Ruth Bradley, who was wonderful at getting the stuff in front of us, just pushed some buttons to go some different directions. And we would do everything from, we'd have to shoot our own titles and optically print everything, cut our own negative. The only thing we didn't have was a place to process the film there, so we would have to send that to these labs in Pittsburgh and get the film back. But otherwise did everything all the way to complete prints and everything of your film. So I loved it. And then made Knuckleface Jones after seeing Gummo in the theater in 1997. And I went to LA for the first time and happened to be like by the Laemmle Theater where Gummo was showing, and I saw the poster and I was like, what is this? And went in and saw it, and there was like 8 other people in the theater. And as it was happening, I was like, this is going to change the world. Like, this is going to get the Academy Award. Everyone's going to start making movies like this. This is incredible. And the lights came up, and I remember people in the auditorium, or in the, not auditorium, it was a small little theater, saying like, that sucked. Like, they hated it. I was so mad about it. And I was confused. And so I just kept talking about it back in school. And that really shifted something, because it was like looking at experimental movies from the 60s is one thing, but then seeing something that modern and out there and just so connected. It took place in Ohio. It just opened a door to like possibilities there that felt modern, or felt not modern, just current, contemporary, I guess is the right word. But yeah, so I made this movie called Knuckleface Jones that was just written. It just came in my mind to try and write some stuff. It's not as far out there. It's pretty stupid and cartoony, but it was definitely felt like me. And I was very excited about it. And the professors at the school really didn't like it. And that felt great. And then, when I met you and Skiz and all these people in Baltimore, Skiz Syzyx was running the Micro Cinefest. And he was one of the first film festivals to accept the movie. I think the Johns Hopkins Film Festival accepted it, was one of the first. And then they told Skiz about it at Micro Cinefest. And right after graduating, moved to Baltimore. So it was like these screenings in Baltimore were the first time I'd shown this movie, and people liked it. And and made friends because of it. And that was the beginning of it. So I met you like really right at that time when it was at the transition point from school to, I'm just living in this town and I have these movies on these reels, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Met all these people through Skiz and through you and through those first few years being in Baltimore and meeting artists that were just making weird work, and there was not an obsession with like, how do I parlay what I've made into a career? It was like, how do I just parlay this into something else interesting or something weird? it was a really wonderful feeling of there was no industry pressure, which for better or for worse, I've not had an industry career probably because of that, but that was very formative for me, I think, of just being like, these are the things I truly love and am inspired by, but it's a lot of stuff that's on the fringes. So that's where that.
Speaking of fringe, tell me, how did you meet Ivan Dimitrov?
Oh my God, I forgot this whole part of my life. Ivan Dimitrov is a Bulgarian man, a very special man. And he has been in a bunch of stuff I have done. And he was a construction worker in DC, but grew up in Bulgaria during the communist run of it. His life story is really incredible, that his parents had to leave the city they were in and left Ivan alone in an apartment when he was, I think, 9 or 10 to go to school on his own because his parents were threatened with being executed and stuff. So he ended up making his way to the US, when he was there, he was really into dance, and he's a dancer, and he's like the weirdest dancer you've ever seen. It's like he now takes what's Bulgarian traditional folk dancing and just combines it with total lunacy. And he's just got this energy that's maniacal. So after Baltimore, I met, not after Baltimore, while I was living in Baltimore, I met a fellow at a screening named Leo, who was going to make a feature film, and he had seen Knuckleface Jones. And he was like, he's a very charming, suave British man. I'm going to make a feature film about a Bulgarian pastry chef. And this sounds like Werner Herzog maybe, but he was very British. He's like, I'm going to make this movie about this Bulgarian pastry chef that topples capitalism, brings the end of capitalism. And I was like, I don't even know what that is or what that could, Dan, what the fuck he was talking about. But I agreed to shoot his movie. We shot it on 16 millimeter. It took probably 2.5 years to shoot. He worked for the World Bank. He financed this movie on his own. He lived on Logan Circle in DC which at the time was just terrifying to be near. And so we all lived in his house and his neighbor's house while making this movie. And he brought Ivan in from meeting him at this Bulgarian dance recital. And I just latched onto him immediately and started casting this up. Now, Leo, later, after the movie was done, and it never screened anywhere, I have a VHS copy of it, but Leo is brothers with his brother's Boris Johnson. And Leo Johnson, he's this filmmaker and activist for the environment and stuff. And then his brother is this man, Boris Johnson, who ended up being doing some things in England, I guess I should say.
I might have heard his name before.
But they're like identical looking. So all the news when that started to happen was so crazy because it just was reminding me of Leo. But I've not really caught up with Leo since all of that. The movie's never screened anywhere. I do have a copy, and I always thought about maybe doing something with it, but I don't know what it would be. I don't want to shame Leo in any way, and it's not mine to put out. So I met Ivan, this crazy Bulgarian guy that I ended up writing other movies around, and maybe was one of the first people that was like, oh, like I really love writing for these true weirdos, true eccentrics.
Help me out here. So Microcinefest runs through both of our lives very big. And I swear I was at a Microcinefest, and that stopped, I want to say 2008, but I could have sworn that I was at a Microcinefest and there was a table there with posters on it. And I want to say it was a movie that you made with Johnny Knoxville. Does this ring any bells?
I did make a movie with Johnny Knoxville, but I don't know if it's a Microcinefest.
The movie wasn't at Microcinefest, but the posters were, I thought, but the timeline doesn't add up because didn't that come out in 2013 or something?
I never did anything with him prior to that. And I don't think he was in anything that would have been the era, but like or late 90s. Yeah, I didn't meet him until we did that movie. Yeah.
We were talking before we started recording about Corey Maccabee, and I remember he had a small role in the Guatemalan Handshake, which is probably the last thing that I've seen of yours in a theater, which is very unfortunate because I love your movies, but that was the last time I actually got to see that. And I got to see it several times, which was really freaking fantastic. And that experience of yours making your first feature, that must have been quite an adventure.
we shot that movie for $50, maybe $75,000 total. And it was shot on 35 anamorphic on these old cameras and the same lenses they used to shoot like The Mission and stuff. Massive anamorphic lenses. Like we were just like, give us your least rented camera for the lowest price possible from Joe Dutton Cameras in North Carolina. And I don't even know how we did this. Everyone worked for free. I have no idea how we made this movie, but yeah, it was like a million favors. Asked Will Oldham to be in it. He said, sure. Asked Corey to be in it. He said, sure. It was all analog, like no effects work in it at all. It was so nuts. That was 2004. We shot it and finished it in 2006. And at the time when everything was going to digital projection. So it was like we had this beautiful 35 print and nobody could show it. Like festivals were like, nah, we switched all our projectors out. I watched the film again, like maybe 5 years ago. We did a screening at Austin Film Society and I hadn't seen the print for years. And it looked like we shot it in like 1930. It was just like looking at something that truly felt so older than we were. It's just like the entire aesthetic of film has changed so much. And I remember the movie very well. And I remember like we cut the negative, did everything on it. There was no digital process in that movie, but it was like, I felt so disconnected from my current self in that movie in good and bad ways. But it was just like, how was I alive at the time when this technology did? So I love that you got to see it. It was projected, I'm sure, when you saw it. And it just feels like that is not even that's a relic of a different time. But yeah, when we did MicroCinefest, everything was like projected on film at that. There was shot video things. I remember watching Huck Botko's movies, banana cream pie movies and stuff on video.
Like Alaska and all that. Yeah.
God, it was so fun watching audiences at MicroCinefest go through these roller coasters and Skiz would know what he was programming, but no one would know what any of this was. It all felt like it was coming out of the trash. And it was like anything was possible. Like a dead body could show up in these movies, or in Huck Botko's movies, like injecting people's blood into a birthday cake and feeding it to little kids and making it feel. This is all I believed it at the time. I was like, is that real? Is it not real? And seeing it with an audience where people are getting mad and I was getting mad and then cracking up and stuff. It's like this roller coaster of emotions that like wouldn't work anymore today. All of that stuff just feels definitely from another era. And I guess it is, but actually seeing that projected and feeling, oh my God, nothing looks like this anymore. And it was not intentionally. It was like seeing our silent films or something as if we made things on. Yeah. I felt like Charlie Chaplin at the end of that Chaplin movie. We're standing on the side crying.
I'm sure that car doesn't help either because that car is so out of time and out of place.
Yeah, a friend of mine. So yeah, it's a little tiny. Hey, this is pre-electric car. There's a guy from Baltimore, coincidentally from Baltimore, that invented these commuter car and city car things that we used in that. And he had a whole grand vision. He was Edward. What's that actor's name from? Ed Begley Jr. wasn't electric cars, but Edward Norton. Is that right? Yeah. It's his uncle or something that started this whole community in Columbia, Maryland, I believe. And these cars are all going to be part of it. Anyhow, I'm getting too into the weeds on this thing. But yeah, this guy had visions of a bigger electric car called a Tesla at the time. This was like in the 80s he was going to make, and it all got shut down. And I love the idea of this guy with a true dream of how to make something happen, and it was shut down by the bigger corporation things that actually had worse ideas. When it was just like he was just shut out of it by the industry. That car influenced a lot of Guatemalan Handshake because that's kind of what the movie was about. Kind of people that were shut off from their possibilities in life, I think. Very vaguely, abstractly in that movie. But yeah, a friend was up driving from like Texas to Seattle and stopped in Montana somewhere and was like in the middle of nowhere. And he said there was like a gas station and an ice cream shop where he pulled over at this exit. And he was at the gas station filling up his car, and he looked over and there was an ice cream shop that was closed. And in front of the ice cream shop was the orange car from Guatemalan Handshake, the exact same looking one. And he goes over and he took pictures of it. And in the back, it said, this was the car used in the movie, The Guatemalan Handshake in Montana. And he sent me pictures of it. That's incredible. One, that anyone knows what that is. Two, that's not the car. It's not the same one, because I could tell from parts and stuff on it. I think at the time I still had the car. I think that's why I was like, this isn't the car. But anyhow, yeah, I ended up selling the car back to the guy that bought it off the lot when it was originally for sale in Florida. I put it up on eBay, and he bought it because it was a project he did with his father when he was young. They were in Ohio, and they drove down to Florida to buy one of these cars where you could get them, and towed it back to Ohio, and he had it and then sold it. And now he had grown up and he had a kid, and I want to relive those days working on this electric car like I did with my dad. And he looked on eBay and he found the exact car, like the one that he bought with his dad. So he inherited it back. So sweet, which is actually goes into kind of what Guatemalan Handshake is about, these loops of people, reconnecting and disconnecting. So not to say that movie's has any artistic merit, but maybe in the universe somewhere.
Microcinefest ends in 2008, I believe, and then I kind of lose track of you. And then next thing I know, I see a movie come out that says Catechism Cataclysm. How do you go from Guatemalan Handshake to that one? And when and how did you meet Stephen Little?
Guatemalan Handshake, no one ever sent me an email being like, do you want a job? Or thought, oh, you could make a movie and then people will be like, hey, do you want to? And that never happened. And so I think I got into the Sundance Labs. I wrote a movie called Sweet Cheeks like a Little Rascals kids movie. And then started work on this movie called Scoutmasters, writing that for the Sundance Lab. And that eventually did get made in a disastrous way. But prior to that, it was just a script that was at the Sundance Lab. And a company came along and wanted to make it. And it was just so frustrating. Years just were going by. And my friend Megan Griffiths in Seattle made a movie called The Off Hours, and she did it for $50,000 on those little DSLR cameras when they were just hitting the market and had a decent enough image that started to look good. And she was like, you should just shoot a movie. And I had this vision of Steve Little, and actually it was at the time Ronnie Bronstein who's now working with the Safdie brothers, just did this Timothée Chalamet movie that's coming out. It was going to be the two of them in a canoe going down the river. I just saw them both dressed as priests in a canoe, and I was on a long drive and just thinking about it and started brewing up the story and just decided to make that while the other movies weren't going anywhere. And so we shot it very quickly, like in 2010, at the end of 2010. I think I wrote it that year, ended up casting Steve Little and Robert Longstreet, and put it all together very quickly and shot that for, I think, $50,000 as well. I knew of Steve through a mutual friend, David Gordon Green, who had just shot started Eastbound and Down. And when they shot the pilot for that, he sent me a message that was like, I met the retarded version of you, is what he said. And it was Steve. And basically, David picked up on it. And Steve was not really written into the show yet, because he showed up at the pilot. And if you watch the pilot, he's just like one of the teachers at the table. And his obsession with Kenny starts to come out in that scene. And it was all, I believe that was all improvised, or if it was just hinted at in the script. And then those guys were like, oh my God. And they found the whole dynamic, like from after meeting Steve. I had known about Steve from that moment David did. And I was obsessed and in love with him, and asked him to do this movie. Yeah. So I wrote it around him. And the movie's very Stevie Janowski, because that's all I really knew him as. And that is Steve's personality expanded upon. He knows how to, just like any good comedian, he's riffing on himself in a bigger way. So yeah, it's like that came together really quick, but Steve took a big risk on me, just being like, I don't know what this movie is. I don't understand it. I remember him being on set being like, I get why I'm here working for free, and I get why you are, but why is that sound guy here for free? And it was like, because this is like how movies get made, otherwise they can't. And it was his first experience with a low budget movie. Like he came from a comedy world, just got put into the film and movie world, for him, I think it did. I can't speak for him, but just from our conversations, it had a significant impact on how he sees things and sees the importance in things, and can compare to being on a massive TV show where it really you have no relationships with the people around you. It's very transactional. People are here for the job. They go home. And with movies like this, it's like everyone really bonds and knows each other. And Steve and I have been friends since then and talk all the time. And it's a real friendship. And what I think he's witnessed is that doesn't necessarily happen on any of these bigger projects and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. So it's like that movie came about very quickly, and then it got into Sundance, and which was crazy because we were shooting it past the deadline. Sundance gave me a very extended late deadline to send it in. And so we technically shot the movie after the Sundance deadline had passed and did a very fast edit. I was going through medical stuff. I was actually in the hospital for a month, like between the edit and that. And then we shot, I think September, October, edited as fast as we could until I went into the hospital. I was in the hospital November, and then got out on Thanksgiving and got a call from Sundance on Thanksgiving, and still had to recuperate and finish the movie, mix it, do the color, and then be at Sundance in January. And for the first day I felt back to normal, I guess, was the day of the premiere. And nobody knew that so it's like we finished a movie in the same time that I went through a massive surgery. So it was just the craziest, most miraculous time. And then, we sold the movie to IFC when IFC was buying movies for like $150,000, but that was 3 times our budget. Everybody got some money. IFC was like, we're not really going to do anything with this or any of the movies we're buying. We're just going to throw them out there. And that was fine with us. We were just like, great. It was like just the beginning of that style of distribution where it's, we're going to buy your movie and then throw it into a pit. And we're all like, I don't understand that, but thank you. And and that was that movie. But that movie's a miracle that it was made, and what was happening behind the scenes was crazy.
I still haven't seen Uncle Kent 2 because I keep looking for the first one, but I have read the novelization of Uncle Kent 2. First off, how's the novelization come about? And then second off, how's the movie come about?
The novelization, which I have a copy of, I should go back and read it. It says it's written by L.P. Eves on there, but it's actually Jack Pendarvis, who was a writer with Kent on Adventure Time, and he's a short story writer. He had I think this was in Micro Cinefest or Maryland Film Festival. He wrote the short story that this movie, The Pipe, is based on, that stars Nathan Zellner and Kent Osborne, that they were both in. It's on the Uncle Kent 2 DVD if you ever want to purchase or steal that. But he wrote that novelization because Kent knew him as a writer, and we were like, do anything you want to, do it as an adaptation. Like, these writers would be given batteries not included, turn this into a novelization, and they would take some liberties with it and add things. And Jack came up with this idea that it would be this guy that was really bitter about his job, doing this. And so he really hated the movie, and he picked things in the movie that he really hated. So it just goes on this. It's so stupid and so funny and so for nobody. It just diminishes the audience. Who is this for? Smaller and smaller. But that is the point of the movie, because Kent had made Uncle Kent with Joe Swanberg as a mumblecore movie back. I remember when that movie was made. I saw it once at Sundance, and that was it. And then years later, Kent was like, I want to make a sequel, Uncle Kent 2, and asked Joe to do it. And Joe was kind of like, sure. But then he got busy and was making bigger movies and just kept stringing Kent along a little bit, maybe. And Kent was like, okay, you're not going to do this. I'm going to ask somebody else. And he asked Andrew Bujalski, and Andrew said no. And then, but in a kind way. And then he called me, and I had just read an interview with Abel Ferrara where he said, I've never turned a job down. And I was like, yeah, I've never been offered a job, and I would never turn one down. Kent calls the next day, and he was like, do you want to direct Uncle Kent 2? And I said, yes. I agreed to it without knowing what he was talking about. I was like, I'm just happy to do it. And Kent's so funny. He's just one of the funniest writers. And he's wrote for Adventure Time and SpongeBob, and he's made movies with his brother that are always funny. And all the shorts Kent is in are incredibly funny. I love Kent sincerely. And then he came up with kind of the story, and then I threw a bunch of things into it, and Kent really liked those. And we just kind of shot it off of an outline. But the idea was for it to start in let Joe Swanberg direct the first 15, 20 minutes of it. So it was supposed to feel like a very boring mumblecore movie, like where Kent's trying to make Uncle Kent 2 and Joe rejects him. And then the movie switches into this other gear. And the movie's based on Kent reading the first 10 pages of The Singularity is Near and then putting the book away. And then we just kind of riff off of what maybe happens in that book. This makes no sense as I'm explaining it. The movie's impossible. The movie's impossible to tell anyone to watch because you shouldn't want to watch it. But then when you do, the rewards are plentiful, I think. And so it's an unmarketable movie for so many reasons. But the movie then goes off in this totally different direction. So if you make it through the first 15 minutes, you're rewarded with a movie that starts to turn on itself and attack itself, and like all kinds of great weird things start happening. The movie kind of implodes, and like Weird Al Yankovic shows up. It's very stupid, very fun, and we'd have screenings of it that were just like through the roof. Like people loved it, so much laughter, so much fun. But it was truly like a movie I wouldn't be able to tell people like you have to go see Uncle Kent 2, and they'd be like, I didn't see the first one, and I'd be like, yeah, I know, I saw it once, but I made the sequel based off of memories of a screening. It's impossible to pitch, but that's what I loved about it. Truly like underground, I think, in its sensibilities.
So this guy makes some of the most beloved cartoons that are out there, and his name is on this piece of filth that you just directed called, I can't even say the title, Fuck My Son? What the?
Yeah.
Is that going to be like the news story? Like we're going to now have to cancel Kent Osborne and everything that he's done just because he's...
No. Kent supported this blindly, and he doesn't approve of, I should say, Kent is a holy man now. He's a reformed Christian. God loves him. He's surrounded by God's love, and no. So Kent invested in this movie to get this one going, because it's like, it's just been a lot of years. I'm doing stuff for Adult Swim for years, but none of those were taking off as a series, and had other scripts and stuff that came close to getting made and then would fall apart. I wrote a script for Chris Columbus for the Christmas Chronicles 3 with a buddy, and Netflix didn't give Chris Columbus enough money to make it, so he didn't make it. It's just like a lot of things are just like, I think like it's probably more of a common LA lifestyle story of just like you're writing things and they're not getting made. And I was like, I know how to make movies. I know how to do it. I'm going to go back to what I did with Guatemalan Handshake and do that again and just make something for as cheap as possible. And it happens to be this comic book by Johnny Ryan called Fuck My Son. I just wanted to do something totally uncompromised. And this movie kind of drew a line of where that compromise would start and end. So we don't change the title. We keep as much of the comic intact as humanly possible. And we go for it like an exploitation movie. Just sell it on its perceived faults of being disgusting and vile and inappropriate and not available through a corporation. And that really excited me, of being like, what if we make something that has no chance of selling to Netflix or any of this stuff? You know, like if you take that off the table, what do you have and what do you have to do? And then that has motivated everything since with it. And that freedom with it being like, let's not put hope into somebody coming in and saving us, because all versions of a corporation getting involved with any movie are 90% of them are terrible. No one has a good experience. The movies are being thrown into a pit or just put away, and that had happened enough. So this movie really set a line where it's like, it's up to me to get it out there and to do it and to find a new means of doing it. Even if those new means are the old mean, like just looking back at how movies were released prior in the 70s or 80s, like when these restraints were there as well. So it's exciting in that way. And it was like, oh man, it really reinvigorated me about doing it. So I love, as you do not ever want to tell somebody when they say, what's your movie title? You're the doctor and they're like, what are you working on? And it's called Fuck My Son. It's just, you can't say that to a normal person without them being embarrassed for you. Put yourself in set up these parameters that you have to work within. It's the most creatively fulfilling thing that I've ever done. I wouldn't exchange it for anything. It's really helped me find my connection to everything that I've really, truly love. Like that we're talking about, even back to Micro Cinefest stuff. It's like, this is what I truly feel connected with. And this movie makes me feel like I'm a part of that now, whereas I didn't prior. I always felt like my stuff was maybe shooting for a little more of a commercial bent or something, and you'd finish something and be like, man, I hope John Waters likes this, or I hope the people from that kind of world like this. But I was like, I don't think this is the type of movie. And this one really feels like, yeah, maybe this is the one that cements itself in that same world. And that feels great. That feels like an accomplishment personally for me of where I belong, even if that separating money from the equation, that's what I want more than anything. Yeah. So yeah, it's been an interesting experience.
How did you find the comic, and what did Johnny Ryan say when you approached him about this?
Our mutual friend Calvin Reeder, who I know you've seen his shorts, right? Like he did some features called like The Oregonian and The Rambler, and a new movie called The A-Frame. He did a movie called Jerk Beast back probably when we were at Micro Cinefest stuff, but it didn't enter that orbit back then, early 2000s. But it was a public access show in Seattle, and Calvin met Johnny Ryan at that time when he was just starting out doing his comics. And so I've known of Johnny since meeting Calvin years and years ago, and loved Johnny's comics, but never thought of it as that there was something there for me to do. And so he had posted that he had a new comic called Fuck My Son, and it had this cover of an old woman with a cigarette coming out of her mouth screaming, "Fuck my son." And so right away, it was like, oh God, what is this? It's just so intriguing. Got the comic and was halfway through reading it. Had to order it from France, I should say, because there's no US publisher that would do it because of the title. And so I got it from France and just started reading, and it felt like getting a real dirty magazine or something. It was halfway through, and I was like, oh my God, I know who to cast in this. I know who can play these roles. I know how to do this. And I was really hoping that it would take a turn where I wouldn't be able to make it, so that I could say, okay, yeah, it's out of my too expensive. But by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, oh my God, I know where to shoot. I never mentioned it to anybody for like weeks, and just kept thinking about it, trying to talk myself out of it, and then talk to Calvin, and he was like, you should do it. Like, and then he put me in touch with Johnny, and Johnny was like, I wrote this to be a movie. This is the first comic I've written that I really felt could be like a real movie, like a serious movie. And we talked about tone a lot on that call. And I mentioned that that while reading it, I wanted to cast Robert Longstreet and Steve Little, who were in Catechism Cataclysm, that Robert should play the old woman. And Johnny was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that can work. And then I said, but Steve Little is just, and I was explaining Steve to him, and Johnny started saying, yeah, I really love that idea. I love Steve Little because he did a short film where he was like a bedridden guy, and this mom hires a Sammy Davis Jr. impersonator to come to his bedside, and they have this weird relationship. And he said, the tone of that movie is perfect that Steve was in. And I was like, oh yeah, I made that movie. And Johnny was like, no, it's like a short that I saw on YouTube. And I was like, no, I made that movie. It's called Rat Pack Rat. I made it. That's Steve. Like, that's the movie I made. And so that kind of blew both of our minds that we were talking, and it just cemented that we were on the same page tonally about how to make a movie like this, that it can be funny, but it's got to be played with real actors and real straight. And so that's how that, yeah. And so after that, Johnny was on board, and I just took it and ran with it and somehow put it all together. I don't think he thought it was going to happen.
When you've got your friend Steve Little in there again, little tough to see him though. How long did it take to put all that makeup on him?
It was like three and a half hours, or no, I think his got down to 2, and then Robert Longstreet's was like 3 hours, and that was all done by Robert Kurtzman, who's like a legendary effects person. Like if you look him up, if you don't know him, you look him up and you'll know at least 50 movies he has worked on and done, from like the Austin Powers movies to Pulp Fiction to all of Rodriguez's movies to Nightmare on Elm Street movies to Evil Dead to UHF, which is our favorite one to mention. He did Conan the Librarian. So yeah, we built all that around it, but it was like, yeah, that was the fear. It was like, is Steve going to come through on this? Like all his dialogue in the comic is just like there's no dialogue. But Steve's eyes were just, and his tongue does so much performing in the movie. It's like they kept comparing him to the best performance of a tongue since My Left Foot of having your tongue carry so much weight performance-wise. It's Daniel Day-Lewis in that movie. That is a lot of risk, just being like, will this work? But it needed... His performance, to me, is just, every time he'd just be sitting on set in that costume, and it would just look like a bag of shit, just sitting there. And we'd forget there's a human inside of it a lot. And I like set my script down on his lap and think it was a chair and forget that Steve's in there. But then when we started shooting, he'd come to life and have all these ideas, and it was so funny. You just riff on things and bring this character to life in a way that couldn't have been on a page. It was like he invented it. Very fun to watch that come to life.
The movie itself is just so fun. I love how it takes a little while to get going. That intro section is fucking fantastic.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to did the idea for that come from? It was like...
It's kind of William Castle-esque.
Yes, yeah. Like, I think, that was it. Johnny had mentioned something maybe about the opening of Frankenstein, like where there's an introduction to it, then thinking about polyester with the scratch and sniff stuff. Oh, and that was it. The movie was originally going to be in 3D, too, because I wanted to say, fuck my son, rated X in 3D. I was like, you have to go see this movie. If you see that and you have any inkling to go into that theater, the payoff is going to be substantial. Yeah, that's right. We did all of this planning and figuring out how to shoot in 3D, and actually did figure it out. And then a month prior decided that attention was not going to go to the right things on set. Like, we could have done it, but the focus would have gone to a bunch of guys standing around a camera. And I was like, this is all about their performances. This is all about really nailing that. And the gimmick level is not worth it. I love gimmicks and stuff. Yeah. So I think that intro came from me wanting to explain the 3D nature of it in a similar William Castle way. And then once that went away, I was like, I came up with this PervoVision thing that you could watch the movie, amplify it. Basically, if you felt triggered by something, you could censor the movie the way you want, because it felt like audiences are saying, like, I really love that, except I don't like this thing. And if that thing didn't exist, then it'd be a perfect movie. And it's, yeah, Jesus Christ. So it's, go edit the movie the way you want with a technology that doesn't work and whatever. So it was like, it came about from that, which still doesn't seem to be translated in its irony, whereas people are mad that there's 30 seconds of AI in the movie, and which is part of that opening, like the corporate opening of using AI. And they're like, Fangoria won't look at the movie or even talk about it because it's got this in it. And this is exactly what we're talking about. It's because you have you don't like the technology aspect of it, or you don't like this part of it. It's like you're going to ban it. And that is, it's disturbing and crazy, and also just fun to sit back and watch as it's, like the world implode on itself in this, where I get it, where people are coming from in terms of their loyalty towards things, but it's like this blind loyalty that's like destructive in so many other ways. Like, we're censorship, why we need censorship and why we need to boycott things. And it's like, that lesson will never be learned by human beings. So even though this movie isn't an AI movie by any means, it's like fascinating to watch that, because I love anything that's forbidden. I hate digital effects more than anybody. I hate green screens. I hate all of that. I hate how all movies look right now. And it's fun to be thrown into a world right now where people are saying, like, but you're using a technology that we don't like. And it's like, where were you in the last 20 years of this shit? And all of that stuff's fascinating to me. We don't have to get into it too much, because I know people are very touchy about it and stuff. And it's not very much fun to get death with.
I read the Letterboxd reviews. I know how touchy they are.
I went online after the Toronto premiere, and I shut my laptop, and I will never go. That site is like goatsy to me or whatever. It's like, I'm not falling for that again. I'm not going to the swinging, what's lemp again. Like, I fell for this shit like back in the 90s. I'm not going to Letterboxd ever again. What a horrible place. Because like, the reality of it is like, in person, like meeting the audiences that are coming out, it's wonderful. And I'm not lying about it. It's like, we're really fortunate to have our first initial screenings at IFC Center and in LA and now in Austin. Beyond the festival stuff, really great turnouts for it, and everyone stays for the end. And if they didn't ask a question, I feel like I've met everyone that's in the audience. People saying stuff or writing afterwards, and genuinely feeling like that was a great movie to experience with a crowd and to talk about it and to be like, yeah, fuck some of these rules that are out there that make us say we can't use certain things. Like we can't reappropriate things or use it, or have like the Universal logo at the beginning of the movie. And just, I think that's crazily enough, that's exciting to people to be like, wait, yeah, why do we care? These corporations don't even see us as something important or a threat. And I think that's good. I think that's maybe purposeful on their part too, to kind of let things that exist outside of the studio system or the corporate system. We're not even in it. We're not allowed in it, and we're never going to get into it. The in-person reaction and meeting people and talking about it is so different from the internet, and just seeing the amount of hate or perceived things and all that. It's nothing new, but for the sake of filmmaking, I think there needs to be a rededication to putting movies in theaters for that, because it really has a significant effect. It's just the size of the screen. It's an interaction with other human beings and the excitement of it, and seeing people in the lobby talking to each other about the movie and what they experienced together. I saw that movie Climax in the theater, and afterwards the entire audience was in the lobby of the Alamo talking about it and how excited they were about it. And I'm sure you could go look at the Letterboxd reviews of somebody that watched that alone on their laptop and is mad about something. What a horrible waste of your time to do that. And those feelings are being misinterpreted when you're doing these things alone. I don't know it's a good psychological study, but it's night and day difference.
Your main actress is fearless. Where did you find her? It seems like she's been floating around. Like, I know she was in ABCs of Death, but I don't think it was your segment. She was in the original Uncle Kent. She did voices for Adventure Time, which I really didn't hear that she could do voices until one of the endings of the film where we don't see her face. I was like, oh, she's got a perfect cartoon voice.
Yeah, she does all the Meaty Mates voices too in this. And yeah, Tipper Newton. And so we've been friends for 20 years. We actually met through Joe Swanberg. We were both cast in Hannah Takes the Stairs, the preeminent mumblecore movie. It was like with Greta Gerwig and Mark Duplass and Andrew Bajowski. And Tipper and I claim to be the only two that walked away from that movie with no career from it. But we've been friends since then. And Tipper's just been somebody where somebody needs to cast her. She's so great, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just not happening on a substantial level. So when I put this together, I was too shy to ask Tipper to do it. So I was asking her to help with casting because there's so much nudity and weird shit required. And it was a very sexual thing. And I was just like, I'm not asking Tipper to do this. It's too embarrassing. But as the part came together and realizing, you know what, this character shouldn't have as much nudity as the other characters and whatever. We don't need to see close-ups of these things that Johnny's got written in there just because it's going to, just for all reasons that I felt were tonally inappropriate or for a movie versus a cartoon. It was like, oh shit, Tipper, you should do it. That'd be great if you did it. And she was like, yes, I want to do it. But she was there all along. But it was just this thing. I think I was just too embarrassed and just felt protective of her as a friend to be like, I'm not going to ask you to do this. I'll have to ask a stranger to do this weird stuff. But then it came down to, I still can't even ask a stranger to do this. So it was wonderful. But Tipper throws everything in. She channels like Bruce Campbell and she channels like Adrienne Barbeau at times. And it's like we'd be shooting it. And Tipper's such a goofball and so fun. And it's like she'd be doing this intense stuff and then call cut. And then it's like we're all goofing around talking about whatever. She could just go in and out of it in such a seamless, wonderful way. She's the real deal. A lot of people have been saying such wonderful things about her. So it's great.
And who did all the animation of the Meaty Mates? And you have the two different styles of the Meaty Mates, the more real life, quote unquote, versus the cartoon that she's watching on the tablet. Who did those?
I originally wanted to do like VeggieTales stuff. So I learned Blender to do that in Blender, which somebody was like, that's the program that they've been using for that. That's once you get the character set up, very easy. And I built those and they started to feel retro in a way that was like, this feels like an old joke. I asked my friend Cable, who's been a friend since film school, to do like a Flash animation. It was more like, this is what, I don't even know if he uses Flash anymore, but it's like the same current animation style where it just feels so cheap and the mouth is just whatever. And I was like, once that was put into the actual scenes where the Meaty Mates are interacting, it was like, it just doesn't feel like it connects. They needed to be removed in another step. I was learning AI stuff from like when Dolly 2 came out, or like when I was just completely unemployed and I was using it as a means to create images. I was just fascinated with anything that's film technology. I'm fascinated and interested in it. And was using that. And then I was a kids show, by the time this movie's done, is going to be created through AI. So what if I try to do that? And this was probably a year ago. What is it now? Oh yeah, definitely a year ago when I started animating the Mediamate. So I just decided to do it because also I was out of money. I did all the posts myself, but a lot of the VFX myself, not everything, but I only had so much to pay people to do the stuff that I knew I couldn't do. So since I was going to do the animation originally, I was like, let me just see how to do this. But it's 4 different characters, which I was like, fuck, why did I do that? If it was 1, it would have been a lot easier. But 4 characters on screen at the same time and their mouths are all moving. So AI can't, or at the time, couldn't do that. So I just created these characters moving in different movements, really basic stuff, and then cut those together, the movements together, and then would have to create the mouths and composite the mouths on each character and the eyes so they were looking the right directions or whatever. So just generating a lot of stuff through AI to make it, and then spending like literally 3 months compositing all this stuff in After Effects with the intention of I wanted it to look like what an AI cartoon for kids would be. And it's not accurate now because things have changed with AI in a way that I didn't know. Like it's gotten a glossier look. So people could pick that out. So it was like the idea was to make it, I was like, this is me projecting that by end of 2025, we're going to have kids cartoons that look like this. And it's not exactly right. But my target goal was to hit what Lawnmower Man did for VFX at that time. It's like, this feels current to this time period in a wonderfully janky, fun way. But they were more on top of it because they knew the direction it was going, whereas AI has just been so fast and so different. But I don't even know if now I could get 4 characters to do what it's doing, but I had to composite each of those into picture. It was so much work. I had a kidney stone while doing it, if that tells you anything about how easy AI is. I needed to move around a lot more and drink more liquids. So lesson learned.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the AI stuff. So I thought it was maybe like the opening credits or something, the animation to the meats forming the letters. I was like, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that those were AI, frankly. And yeah, I guess now that you say it, it is early Will Smith eating spaghetti.
I wish it was more like that. Yeah, it's like, I wish there was more of a telltale with it, but it's just once you start having to composite things together, it loses it's like the character would turn a wrong way, so I'd have to re-loop it and then resend it back into the AI to keep the character just steady or their hands doing something consistent. It gave it more of an animated look that wasn't entirely AI enough. I didn't even know at the time though. It was like I just felt like this works. I thought it was just fine for the jankiness level and for what I was capable of, but I didn't know that it was going to be something that I needed to speak for. I thought it would just be clear, like, oh yeah, that's what you're doing. If I did the VeggieTales Blender version of it, which I could have done, that would have been clearer, but it just would have been like, oh, this also was done 20 years ago already. It's like the same joke. So I was just trying to get ahead of it. And for that reason, people have their heads in the sand about technology. So we can't act like that stuff exists in any way.
Yeah. That's a weird hill to die on. So I know the movie is, as we speak right now, touring around, or at least that's what I think I remember seeing on Instagram, playing like Music Box and a few other venues.
Austin this weekend, but those are sold out, which is wonderful. And then I'm going to San Francisco right after that and doing a screening at the San Francisco Alamo with Mike Kuchar and showing The Stranger in Apartment 9F, one of his shorts. That's a huge thing for me, is to be able to Mike say, yes, I want to come there and be there and show this. Is wonderful and terrifying because I have no idea what he will think of this movie. And then, then we're in Chicago and Atlanta, and being at the Plaza in Atlanta. It's at the Gap Theater in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. It's like a different city every week through February and now March. So I know we're announcing more stuff soon. We're just going to keep it going like that, do an East Coast tour, a Midwest thing. All of that's still coming together. But yeah, there'll be more things that come with it. Yeah, that we have in the works. Some other short films and things that get added to it, and Pervo Vision at most of the screenings and stuff like that. So it's, very much a chip off the old William Castle block and the Roger Corman block and all of that stuff, but in a way that's rewarding and that I wasn't totally expecting, of just like in a community kind of way. Yeah. Something that's perfect to do when you're older and like to sleep in.
I know you have a lot of plates that you're spinning at all times, just trying to get something to take off. Do you know what's next for you?
After we did this, I was like, I don't know if I need to make another movie. I don't know if movies want to be made right now. Again, on the Letterboxd front, if in 10 years people are like, why did movies die? And it's because you guys killed them. But it's like everyone's feeling that. Every movie is a miracle and an impossibility right now, and they just get trashed. I'm not sure what it means. I think it's great to create work for yourself right now, but like financially, it's not rewarding. And so when it becomes like not even rewarding to take it out, this is starting to change in the last few weeks for me personally, but it's like the film festival scene is like turning into a Comic-Con type thing where it's really about the celebration of corporate work. And talking about Microcinefest and stuff, that was, no one talked about money or how this was going to lead to making a studio movie or anything. And I know that sounds stupid, maybe really naive of me, but there's still pieces that are missing. So I'm not really sure the way things are being received now and treated, even on the large scale, like saying Paul Thomas Anderson's movie is a failure and stuff, is y'all aren't, y'all aren't helping the situation here. You're digging the grave deeper. I don't know. I'm just open. I have definitely ideas and things I want to work on, but still this kids movie I want to make. I wrote a wrestling movie that's all wrestlers, like existing based on the short we did called Suplex, Duplex, Complex. And yeah, another like exploitation-y movie. So there's plenty of stuff I'm thinking about, but I think it'll come down to like, how difficult is this? Because I'm also equally as interested in just getting a job at the hardware store here in Tacoma, because I like just talking and interacting with people, and I'm happy to talk about tiling and electric work and stuff that I know about as well in that capacity, because it's just a human connection and no one goes on. I guess people do go on Yelp and talk about how that employee at the McClendon's Hardware was a piece of shit or whatever, but that might be, I think that would be more understandable if that happens. So I don't know. That's bully.
Is there a soundtrack available for Fuck My Son?
Right now, just one track by the Zigzags is out, and it's called Fuck My Son. And then there's other tracks in the movie called Fuck My Son that we're going to put out with the soundtrack that is done by Aaron Olson, who's a wonderful composer. He did David Gordon Green's movie Nutcrackers, and he's got a band called LA Takedown. He's an an experimental musician, but also was played with Dave Pajo and a really wonderful and talented guy. But we want to put that out, and I want to get other artists to record covers, or not covers, just their own version of a song with the title Fuck My Son, so we can have a whole soundtrack that's just like by different artists. So that's in the works probably next year, but in pieces. But right now you can hear the Zigzag song, which is beautiful, a beautiful ode to dirty movies.
Thank you so much, man. This is so great connecting after all these years and talking about this wonderful movie of yours.
Thank you for, talking about it. Good seeing you again. And then, I guess there's a lot more to catch up on. I'll be in better touch now that I made a dirty movie again, and I feel more connected to that world.
You came here for a freak show, but then you sit and judge. You're gonna play by my rules now and reach into his fudge. So who's the real pervert? You wanna have some fun? You asshole sit there willingly and watch her fuck my son. So grab his dick, kiss his lips, look him in the eyes. I wanna see full pleasure when my baby boy comes inside, eating pickles, drinking milk, shitting in the bed. The bugs mean that you're getting closer. Fuck him like a